I've been asked a few times recently, and some via my email, which is the everydaywatches@outlook.com email address, should you want to ask me a question, about the Sunderland badge on my subscribe button. And not just the Sunderland badge, I've also had features of Sunderland books and things I've bought recently, and I thought it was about time I really got to explain it all. Now, the Sunderland badge itself, that was given to me by my ex-girlfriend some time ago, and the books I've bought from the ALS website. But my association and love of Sunderland's gone back a lot further than that. Much, much further than that, in fact. Realistically, it actually started at the end of the 80s, right at the very end of the 80s, with a phone box at the top of the road. Back at the end of the 80s, my best mate at the time, had a Atari computer, Atari ST, and before the internet you used to get stuff for your computer on the front of magazines, demo discs and public domain discs as they called them. Now, as time went on, you could find other people doing the same sort of discs but through the post. So instead of just having to wait for the magazines, you get stuff through the post. Again, before the advent of the internet, you had to go to the phone box or phone from your own home, which wasn't really possible because my dad wasn't so keen on it. So you'd phone from the phone box at the end of the road, which unfortunately no longer here. We found a guy that sold public domain discs in there. He had utilities, demos, music, stuff like that on them. And this guy was really, really nice. His name was Phil, and he was from Sunderland. I didn't realise he was Sunderland at first, but my mate was very, very shy on the phone. In fact, he didn't like using the phone at all. So I rung this guy. So maybe a couple of times a week, we used to ring this guy called Phil with this northern accent, and he would, for a few quid, send us these discs. And he was probably the nicest bloke I've ever met on the phone. Not met in person, but on the phone. One of the nicest people you could ever want to meet. He was a really genuine, really nice guy. He actually worked in the Nissan factory up at Sunderland, making the Nissan cars. And I can't remember where he lived. He lived on a new estate somewhere. But he was a really nice, genuine person. We did this for a few years, buying discs and stuff, and then eventually I wanted to buy a Commodore Amiga computer. I could have bought my Amiga computer the normal way, which would have been through the Dixons or somewhere else, or actually I think I worked at electrical retailer at the time, so I could have probably bought it from them. But I didn't want to, I wanted to be loyal, and I bought it from Phil. And it cost me 400 quid. I think it was about the late 80s, probably, if you think about it, compared to my ex-girlfriend, it's probably just about when she was born, or a couple of years after she was born maybe. But I bought this computer for 400 quid, which was an awful lot of money at the time, because remember, then I probably only earned about 80 quid a week, something like that, I think. I was really pleased to get the computer from him, and we kept in contact. We kept buying discs from him. Even when I had the Amiga, he still sold discs and stuff that we could get hold of. It was such a nice place. He would talk to you through anything. He would talk to us about life, stuff like that, down what's going on down here, what was going on up there. I asked him questions about what was going on up there. He even spoke to us one week. I remember ringing him, and a few days before I rung him, I didn't know until I spoke to him that unfortunately his son had died. It was really shocking. I said to him, look, I'm really sorry, look, I'll end the phone call, I'll let you get on with stuff. And he was like, no, we'll still speak, we'll still talk. And he was a genuinely nice person. I remember sending him a card of condolences for that, and we kept in contact for quite some time. Now, first thing that changed was my mate suddenly found himself a girlfriend, and he stayed with this girl, and that was sort of the end of us getting discs together as such. Then by the early 90s I had a girlfriend, and really the computer didn't get much of a look in. It doesn't tend to then. You tend to have a girlfriend, so you go out more, drinking, clubbing, doing other things that are a lot more interesting than using your computer. Although we did play a game called Pinball Fantasies together on it. So the computer didn't get so much of a look in anymore, and I sort of lost touch. It was sort of really the last time I suppose I spoke to Phil. But I had a massive interest in Sunderland. I loved his accent. I loved speaking to him. Sometimes he would answer, sometimes the kids, his daughter, my wife, people like that would answer the phone, and it was just nice to speak to them. Really nice, genuine people. So moving on from that and ending up a few years later in 1998, by which I had my own house. I was living with somebody else by then, and there became a fantastic football programme. Now, I like football. I'm a staunch Liverpool supporter. I've been a Liverpool supporter for years. But a TV programme came on called Premier Passions, which was on the BBC. was actually directed by a Newcastle supporter, strangely enough. But the programme was about a Premiership side at the time, Sunderland AFC, sort of charted their rise from, they'd just been promoted from the Championship into the Premiership, and at the same time they were moving from Roker Park to the Stadium of Light, and it sort of charted their progress during the Premiership and the building of the Stadium of Light. Unfortunately, by the end of it, of course, they got relegated back down to the Championship, and they moved into their new stadium as the biggest stadium in the Championship. I think it held the greatest amount of seats. I think it was 42,000 seats, which for a Championship side, especially for Sunderland, when Sunderland were filling the stadium. I mean, out of the Championship sides, most Championship sides probably got 21,000 or less supporters. Sunderland were getting 42,000 supporters every home game for a Championship game, which was amazing. Luckily, the year after, they did get back into the Premiership. They rose straight back to the Premiership straight again, but they didn't stay in it again for very long, and now, unfortunately, they're even further down. But the TV show was brilliant. The TV show showed, I said, this building of this fantastic new stadium, the Stadium of Light.
Sunderland used to be famous for its shipyards. They've all gone now. But in return, the town was granted city status. A city without a cathedral. But not for long. This was millionaire chairman Bob Merry's dream. A 42,000-seater stadium, twice the size of Roker Park. Built on the site of an old coal mine, it's a towering monument to a local lad made good. Every day, devout fans made their pilgrimage to watch it rise. It seems insane, but even on Christmas Day they came to pay the respects and dream of future glories.
I think it's the biggest statement the club's done in 100 years, and I think that it says everything about the potential of the club that must be realised in the future.
It also showed Peter Reid. Peter Reid was a proper character. This guy was absolutely hilarious. The thing the show was famous for was the music. Had this fantastic classical music playing along with the football, so it's really well shot. Really spiked my interest the way that they did the music and the football. And the other thing was Peter Reid. Peter Reid was a former Everton player and manager of a few other clubs as well. He was also probably the most sweariest person on TV, especially at that time. This show was full of him going into the dressing room and swearing his head off, and it was absolutely hilarious. And I thought to myself then, I love the programme, love the show, and I thought as a second team, if I was to have a second team other than Liverpool, my second team would definitely be Sunderland. They had some great players at the time. They had people like Niall Quinn and Kevin Phillips. Kevin Phillips was awesome player, played brilliantly, got many years he got the top goal scorer, or was always near the top goal scorer. Even when he was in the Championship and they were playing as a Championship side, he still outscored most Premiership players. Fantastic player and fantastic side. The show was shown on the BBC. They've never repeated it. I've never seen any repeats of it. It is available on YouTube. I've got the clips for it here. However, the quality on YouTube is absolutely shocking. Terrible quality. Unfortunately, I'm sorry about that. As you can see also, if you saw from the intro, it did sort of influence me a little bit. Actually, for my fascination with the club, not so much the club, the town itself, or city, shall we say, sometime in 2000, I think it was 2000, I even downloaded, as part of my pictures, I downloaded an aerial shot of Sunderland from a microlight, which is quite good. Which, of course, I still have in my picture collection, because I've still got a lot of pictures on my hard drives. So then we move on again to 2010. In 2010, I was working in a store, which I've been working in for a good 10 years, and we amalgamated with another store across the road. And I was walking through the store on sometime in April 2010, early April 2010, I think it was. I was walking through the store with my good colleague, very good friend, very good friend, lovely friend of mine, who was actually we classed her as my work wife, and she classed me as her work husband. Somebody I got on really well with, somebody I really liked, and I was talking to her. I'd just come back from holiday, I think it was, and I was talking to her, and as I walked through the store, we stopped at the front, started talking, and this girl came around and started working on a counter. And I was talking to my friend, but noticed this girl, and I saw this girl, and I thought, my God, I just instantly, for the first time in my life, I properly fell in love at first sight with this girl. Didn't know who she was, Didn't know anything about her, didn't know where she's from. I assumed obviously she was local. She had very short hair, looked absolutely lovely, and I didn't know who she was. Didn't know her name, didn't know anything about her, didn't know if she's single, didn't know if she's straight, gay, or anything like that. I had no knowledge of who she was, but I just knew there and then I was in love with this person. I just really wanted to be with this person. So we walked out the back, carried on talking, and all I could do was think about this person all the time. Eventually I walked out on the shop floor, went round, started work, and I eventually talked to her. It wasn't a magical smile that anything that sort of attracted me, because she didn't really have a smile. I remember later on she told me she had a thing called resting bitch face, which meant she didn't have much of a smile when she looked, but I still fell in love with this beautiful woman. So I ended up speaking to her, and when I spoke to her, she spoke with this funny accent, which I thought magical accent. It wasn't funny, it was just a northern accent. I thought, oh, hello. And eventually it turns out that she was from Sunderland and she moved down here. So I chased after her, and I just wanted to be with her. Eventually we did get together, and I finally found the person I truly wanted to be with. To be honest with you, it didn't matter if she was from Sunderland or not. That was relevant, to be fair. It just happened to be really strange and quite, I don't know, a strange coincidence or whatever it was. It was just really weird. I wouldn't have cared where she was from. I was in love with her. It didn't make any difference. This was a woman I wanted to marry, have children with, and spend the rest of my life with. So I couldn't care less where she came from, but it just happened to be really nice that she did also know a lot about Sunderland because she was born there. And unfortunately, 7 years later, it came to an end. On the way home from work on May the 5th, 2017, I stopped after work, just after 6, at the co-op. Before I went and got some food, I made a phone call, phoned Leanne. Strange enough, I was actually phoning her to tell her how much I wanted to come over and see her. I wanted to come and meet her because there was a strange coincidence. I'd lost my necklace a few days beforehand, and then all of a sudden it had been found. Now, Adam had found it, just forgot to tell me he'd found it. So I thought, this is a really good coincidence, so I'll ring her up and tell her. Now, during the conversation, I was a bit unsure. Things had been going on, and I was still unsure whether or not I was right for her. Was I the right person for her? Was I too old? A lot of people were telling me that I was too old for her by then, and things hadn't gone well with interference from other people. And during the course of the phone call, somehow we ended up splitting up, and this was the end of our relationship. It stopped. Now, I couldn't believe it. I mean, I sort of went into the co-op, got something to eat, went home thinking, well, I'm sure she still loves me and I still love her very much. We're still going to get married. We're still going to have kids. That's all we talked about. I told her during the conversation in the phone call, I kept telling her I loved her. I finished the phone call saying, I love you very much. Speak to you later. She said to me, no, you won't. That was it. But we never spoke again. Now, with hindsight, I don't really know what's going on. We never got the chance to speak about it. I didn't get a chance to talk to her. We didn't discuss it. We didn't try to get back together or anything like that. She just wasn't interested at all. Once she put the phone down, she'd gone. She'd left me for good. And I had no choice. There was nothing I could do about it. I tried and tried and tried, but there's nothing I could do. Later from her friends and all the people that were around her were like, well, it was never meant to be in the first place. This was the excuse she was looking for. Have you ever wondered why she runs so fast and stuff like that? So a lot of people were giving me the indication that this was probably on the cards, and it was something that she had, she was very glad to get away from me and glad to get out of the relationship. All her friends are quite keen to let me know that, she didn't want to be with me and it was definitely the best thing for her. It might have been a group thing. I think it was an ideal opportunity for them to get together. So I've been told that they all sort of made a massive thing of it, and made more of a thing of it than maybe it should have been. And nobody really told her to try and work it out with me, unfortunately. I mean, maybe I should have seen it coming. I mean, on her birthday, on her birthday, she didn't want to spend her birthday with me. She wanted to spend it with her friends, and I was sort of invited along. I should have seen then that maybe the end was nigh, or I needed to do a lot more. I know I did need to do a lot more, an awful lot more stuff. I should have told her that I was always thinking. I've said in other videos, and I've always said it in other videos, there's a lot of stuff that I had in here that I didn't express and that I should have done, and I should have told her how much I loved her, because I still wanted to marry her. I wanted her to be my wife, and I wanted to be a stepmom to my kids. I wanted to have our own kids. I mean, my kids loved her. They got on really well with her. They thought she was brilliant. She got on really well with them. But it would have been nice. We wanted to have our own kids. We planned all this. We planned to live together. Everything seems to be okay. But then it just snapped and it was gone instantly. I like to think, I'd hope to think that I do believe that when she said she loved me, she meant it. I truly do believe she meant that. With what everyone else has told me since, and what's been gone on since, and the way she's acted since then, I don't really know. Maybe I was just too old for, or maybe I was I was a passing fad. I'm not sure. I think and the thing is, we don't talk, so I think I'll never ever know. I'll never be able to find out. But I like to think in my heart that she did feel something in her heart for me, and when she told me she loved me, I think she meant it. It's something she'll probably never admit to, and she'll never tell her friends or anybody like that. Her friends, you know, as far as everyone's concerned, I'm the worst person in the world, and I think I'll probably stay that way. I think she'll never tell anybody what she felt about me when things were good, but who knows. Now, moving on from that, obviously I do want to find somebody I can love. I want to be in love with somebody, I want to get married, and I still want to wake up every morning and look at somebody I adore. Now, unfortunately, that's actually one of the weird things that with Leanne, the only girlfriend I've ever had that I never spent the night with. I never managed to wake up with her. Other girlfriends, I mean, didn't live with them. I'd go on holiday or something like that. But Leanne was the only girl I never ever managed to get to spend the night and wake up with her. Maybe I should have seen something in that as well, I suppose, eh? Never mind. I'm still hoping that I'm going to find love. I don't want to spend the rest of my life alone. I want to spend the rest of my life with somebody I love. Now, also, of course, out of that, I managed to gain Cuddles. So, me and Cuddles, you see me in lots of videos. Cuddles came all the way from the Sunderland Build-A-Bear shop. Leanne brought him back on the train. I remember getting a picture of him when she was on the way back on the train. And it was a case of showing me him and naming him. She had actually named my hamster, so it's my turn to name the bear. So we sort of decided, I mean, I did want to name him just on my own. I wanted to name him with her, so I gave her the choice and we sort of named him together. But he's still unknown to me, to be honest. We used to swap them about. I would keep Cuddles, she would keep my black orange bear, which unfortunately I pretty much guarantee now she's probably thrown away, and that's probably dumped somewhere. And it's actually quite a rare bear as well, because you don't tend to see them very often. But we'd swap them. I would cuddle this, she would cuddle my bear. But again, so I've still got Cuddles. Cuddles staying with me, and Cuddles will visit Sunderland at some point. Now, having said all that, I'm still got connections to Sunderland. I'm still very, very keen on the stuff at Sunderland. I keep look on the Facebook sites. I've got the ALS site. The ALS site is the A Love Supreme, which is a fan site for the football club. And that's where I got my books from, the Mackham book and the Lockdown book. And the money from those goes to charity. So when you buy a book from them, they give some to the local NHS, which was up in the North East, up in Sunderland. I still keep an eye on what the football club's doing. I've got Facebook pages for Sunderland. And I also keep a look on some Facebook pages for some Sunderland photographers, because there's some brilliant photographers up there. One of them's a guy called Josh Berwick. He normally gets his picture in the Sunderland Echo, which I follow. He has a lot of pictures in that. He does some fantastic pictures and some brilliant pictures of things like the Penshaw Monument and stuff like that. Places I've always wanted to go and places that I was promised to be taken with Leanne but never got to. Another photographer I follow is a guy called Dean Matthews. Dean's sort of very similar pictures to Josh in some respects. Dean also has a site called Just Dance Photography, where he does photography of dance models or ballet and modern dance, that sort of stuff. Now, his daughter Caitlin is a fantastic model. She does a lot of his modelling. She's his ambassador, and some of the pictures he's done are absolutely stunning. And I've had contact with him a few times to ask him how he's done these pictures. I see him, I think, how did you manage that? How have you managed to get that so sharp, in focus, and in the style that you've done it? And I've asked him, we've spoken a few times online, only through Facebook. We've never actually spoken in person, but he's just generally a really, really good photographer. Now, probably about a month ago, he put a post on saying he was going to have to stop doing the Just Dance photography for a little while because he had tested positive for COVID. And unfortunately, he couldn't have any clients around or go out and do any pictures of the girls and stuff whilst he was COVID positive. So he put a notice up saying he wasn't well. About a couple of weeks after that, another post came up saying he had to go into hospital because the COVID had actually got a little bit worse and he had to go into hospital, but everything was fine, he'll be okay, he'll get back to photography as soon as he can. Then probably about a couple of weeks ago, his wife posted and said unfortunately it got a little bit worse and he was on a ventilator now. And he's now in hospital on a ventilator with COVID, but again, she was quite positive, things will be okay. And, you know, keep an eye on it, and everyone will keep sending him his wishes, and we all sent him wishes, and get well, buddy, make sure you're okay. Now, last week, at the end of last week, or near the end of last week, unfortunately, there was another post from his wife saying, unfortunately, he died from COVID. Now, it looked like he was doing all right, it looked like he was getting better, and she posted, unfortunately, he died, and it was a few days before his birthday. His birthday was last Saturday. He would have been 45, I believe, on his birthday, so he was 44 the age he died. Now, Dean was a brilliant guy. He's an amazing photographer, great family man. He had 5 kids, brilliant dad, very, very funny. He used to do a lot of TikToks with his daughter, Caitlin, and they were just mad. Kingsley would dress up in some of her clothes, or they'd swap places and stuff like that. Absolutely hilarious. He was a very funny guy, and a great loss for the city, unfortunately. legacy of pictures will live on his website. So I'll put links to his websites and stuff below, and some of his pictures, his gallery, stuff like that. I'll also put a link to his calendar. Now, he was producing a calendar for next year, for 2021, and obviously that sort of would have gone a little bit out of the air, but luckily his eldest daughter Megan has decided to carry on with the calendar, and the money and the proceeds from the calendar will go to his family. So if you can, have a look at the calendar. I'll put a link to that as well. It's a brilliant calendar. I'm ordering one. I hope, if you want to get pictures of the North East, they're fantastic photos. If you're interested, please buy a calendar. If you buy the calendar, the money from the calendar will go to his family, and it'll help support them in this horrible, terrible times. I will visit Sunderland. I'll probably try and visit Sunderland next year. Now, I've not visited in the past out of respect to Leanne. I thought, well, with places we was going to go together, I didn't really want to go without her because it wouldn't have been fair on her, and it was just wouldn't have been very nice. Obviously, the thing is now, of course, she hates my guts and has utter disrespect for me. So, I think personally, there's no point in me not going. I want to take Cuddles up with me. I want to go and take some pictures of some of these places that I would have gone with her. I want to go down, take a drive down the street that she was born on and the street that she lived on, have a look. But there's lots of other places I want to try and find, if I can remember, where Phil worked, where he lived. I want to try and get pictures of some of the monuments, the football stadium, stuff like that. I want to do some pictures with the drone. I will get the Mavic fixed, hopefully. And I will try and get out and do as much as I can when I'm there. If travel restrictions and things and we're over all this horrible disease, then hopefully we'll get up there. Don't know what the weather will be like, but I just want to go and have a look. I don't really want to go with anybody. I don't want to be single, so I want to be with somebody, but I don't know if I want to go with somebody or not. I don't know. It all depends. But anyway, so in answer to the questions, I have a link to Sunderland in the fact that I just love the place. I've always wanted to go. I've had great conversations with people that have been wonderful people. The people up there, really, really, really nice people. Genuinely heartfelt, lovely people, and it's a lovely place. And that's why I will still keep the Sunderland badge on my subscribe button. I've still got Sunderland bits and bobs, like a pen that Leanne gave me, a few other bits and bobs from Sunderland, and of course a beautiful bear that sticks with me, sleeps with me every night. I cuddle him tight every night, and he'll be going with me whenever I go away. He'll go other places as well, of course. So that's why. So now going back to the love of my life front, I'm still very much in love with it. I still love the same person. As I said, at some point I'm going to spend, I want to spend the rest of my life with somebody. I want to wake up with somebody, and I want to be married to somebody. And as of the 3rd of May 2017, since then I haven't kissed, hugged, touched, or been with any other person at all. I've not found anybody that I would be interested in to do that with. So again, it's something that, it's not, I don't feel it unusual. It's it's the way I feel. I haven't met anybody yet that matches up or is equal to or anywhere close to the last person that I kissed. And as I said, that was on May the 3rd, 2017. I've met some fantastic and really beautiful people in the last few years. Some very beautiful people, just they're not as beautiful. They sometimes, don't even come close really, unfortunately. That's not to say I won't find somebody, and somebody who will fulfill I can love truly and honestly, and they can love me just as much. I'm always hopeful, so, but at the moment, it's still there. But although as much as I love her very, very much indeed, that's not the only reason I like Sunderland. And as I said, whether I meet somebody from the north or not before, it doesn't matter. Wherever I meet somebody, as long as I meet somebody that loves me as much as I love them, it doesn't really matter where they're from.